In this lesson, we're going to be talking about concatenation. Obviously, our lesson objective for today will be learning how to concatenate in the Java programming language. So we utilize the plus sign whenever you want to concatenate values. Here I have an example of me concatenating strings. So we have our string name, our declaration, is equal to, we have a one piece of string, which is Fozon, plus our second piece of string, which is the capital A with a dot to emphasize that is my last name. These are two pieces of string, and then the compiler is like, all right, I'm going to combine these two things together to make and store it into name. And we would end with a semicolon. Then we would print out name, and when we print out name, it would say Fozon A, because both Fozon and A are being stored within the place name. As you can see, I also added the space here so that it would reflect the space in the result. We could also do concatenation within the print statement primarily. So I declared my username as noobmaster69, right, with quotation marks. You might have heard that from a pretty good movie with a semicolon. Our string password is going to be legend27. Again, with quotation marks to emphasize that we're storing a string, and then with a semicolon. So now I want to emphasize to the output that I have a username and password. So I print out, or I put the text username with quotation marks. So that's going to print out username. And then I added that space to make sure that there is a space within my result. Similarly, I did the same with password. I have the string text for password, colon, with the space. And then I put the plus sign after both username and password text to add the username from here and the password from here. So the compiler is going to be like, all right, let me print out username. It prints out username. Now I have to print out the username variable. So it's going to find the username variable and see what's stored there, and it prints out that. And it does the exact same thing with password. It prints out the password text that I told it to print out within the quotation marks. Right? And you see that colon as where there and that space. And then I tell the compiler to print out password, but not the password here, but the password that is the variable. So it finds the password and finds the string that is located within the password, and it prints it out. All right, so let's code. So let me do an example where it combines multiple different things into one concatenation. Or not one concatenation, rather concatenate multiple times to make one profile. So let's say I want someone's name. I want someone's probably GPA, school ID, first initial, and last initial. So respectively, what I'm going to do is I want a string for name, maybe a double for GPA. For school ID, what I would want to do is put an integer, and then for those two, first initial and last initial, I'm going to put character. So let's do our declarations first. So name, string name is equal to, let's put my name, Fozon A. For GPA, let's put double GPA is, well, let's lowercase that. Double GPA is equal to 3.9. Yeah, I know I'm not perfect. School ID will most likely be an integer, so I'm going to put school ID, and then I'm just going to put that. And we're going to declare two characters, one for the first initial and one for the last initial. So first initial is equal to, we declared our character and we called it first initial. Use one quotation mark for a character, so I'm going to put F. Yes, and we're going to do the same thing for the last initial, except we change the identifier and what we're storing there. Alrighty, so now let's print this all out with concatenation. And what we're going to do is we're going to concatenate the text that tells what we're printing and then the thing that we're actually printing. So for an example, I'm going to do system.out.println so that it starts on a new line. And I want to say name : plus. And what that does is that it prints out name and colon. So we first compile. And I accidentally put quotation marks there. We should not put quotation marks whenever we're putting a double or an integer. All right. There you go. So we have name and colon, but whose name are we talking about? So then we have to concatenate with our name variable. So what it does is it finds our name. So we stored my name under name. Fozon A is stored under name. So when we run that, it's going to access name and it's going to print it. So it's like, all right, whose name are we printing? Name, name. All right. I want you to do this with the rest of our information. All right. I hope you managed that. Let me finish it off for you. So the next print statement. GPA in quotation marks with a space at the end, and then we add the GPA variable. System.out.println school ID, and then we concatenate the school ID. System.out.println. Now what I want to do is I want to combine them together into one initial. So we have the first initial and the last initial. Now I just want the initial in general. So what we do in that case is we do first initial. Well, actually, first what we do is we tell the user that what we're printing out is an initial. Let me emphasize it's the student initial. Then I'm going to add a space there. Now what we do is first initial, it's going to access the first initial and print it out. And since I don't want a space, I'm not going to emphasize if I don't want to put a space. Now if I want a space, I have to do plus double quotation marks, space, and then there. And that should give me a space. But I don't want a space because I want these two things together. So last initial. And let's print it out. And here you go. So we have our we have our string of text that we printed within our print statement that tells the user what we're printing or what variable we're printing out, and then we access the variables to print it out. So as I tell the user first that we're printing out a name, and then it accesses the name variable and prints out my name. And it does that for every single one. I tell the user that I want a GPA through my string text, and then I print out the GPA variable, school ID, text to tell them that it's the school ID variable. I hope that you enjoyed this video on concatenation, and thank you for watching.